Hey everyone, welcome back. So this month I'm not going to be doing a build. What I am going to do is go over all the past builds I've done and just give you a little progress update on them. And the first frogs up are the Dendrobates Leucomelas. Now this enclosure was a custom built plywood and epoxy tank I made back in 2023. It's about 450 gallons and it measures 5 feet long, 3 feet deep, and about 4 feet tall. And here you can see the progress from where I started to where it is today. Now besides the frogs, I think my favorite part about this enclosure is the size of it. While I do like the small plants, the little ferns and stuff like that, there really is something nice about seeing some really big leaf plants in here. And of course, the most important thing is that the frogs really seem to enjoy it. They're always out and about, climbing around. And if you don't know, lukes love to climb. They are just constantly top to bottom all day long. Now, the only real downside to an enclosure this size, at least for this year, has been trying to find where they have been laying their eggs. Last year was pretty simple and pretty automatic for them. Every 2 weeks or so, I'd go and look in the same area or general area in the tank, and sure enough, under a magnolia leaf, I would find another leaf where they would deposit their eggs. So after about a month or so of not finding any eggs, I decided I'd try the cocoa huts again, but unfortunately this group has never laid in a cocoa hut and it doesn't look like they're going to this year. Now if you think maybe they're not laying eggs, I know they are because I've seen the frogs. I had to collect tadpoles off the parents' backs, so I was off to try a new trick which I've seen people use in the past, which is to put a cup of water in the tank in hopes that the father will deposit the tadpoles there. And sure enough, about 2 weeks later, I find this guy jumping around with a tadpole on his back, and this actually is the new dominant male in the tank. Unfortunately, he's a little unsure of himself. I don't know what he's doing here, maybe checking the water out, or there are other tadpoles, predators maybe, but he doesn't seem to get it quite yet of how to get the tadpole off. Now, unfortunately, this tadpole was on his back all day long. I set the camera out, sorry for the foggy glass there, but he did make one attempt that I caught of trying to flick the tadpole off, which unfortunately didn't work for him. Apparently, tadpole still wants to hang out with dad. And after trying to kick the tadpole doesn't work, he tries one more dive into the water, which unfortunately still doesn't work, but at least now the tadpole's nice and wet again. So because that tadpole was on his back all day long, I did pull the frog and strip the tadpole off of him. But as it turns out, I think this might be a day or two later, he finally did get it right. And not only did he collect one tadpole and deliver it to the cup, but he actually found the second one and brought it over. So at least success for now. Unfortunately, I was still stumped at where these guys might be laying their eggs. So I thought I'd be a little bit more diligent and try to track him down every time he called, or at least when I was home. And this is what I found. He's not on the ground anymore. He's up, I guess you could say, in the canopy of the enclosure. And here he is doing his little dance. And I thought, okay, I'll just leave these guys alone, check the leaf later on, maybe I'll get lucky, maybe he's laying them in bromeliads now. And sure enough, this new dominant male would rather lay up off the ground, up in leaves, bromeliads. I'm going to start checking other places, but not only did I find this, but after some further searching, I found some almost completely developed tadpoles ready to go in the water. So now I've got quite a few luke eggs again, and this is actually the first clutch I collected. These guys should be popping their back legs anytime now. This is a community setup. I started with 7, I still have 7. There was no cannibalism. Unfortunately, now that I have different ages of tadpoles, I've had to come up with this, which is pretty janky if you ask me, so I'm going to come up with something new here real soon for them. And next frogs up are the Pena Blancas. Now these frogs I got from Josh's Frogs about a year and a half ago. And the enclosure they are in is another custom built epoxy and plywood tank. This originally had the lukes in it, but of course I had to build something bigger. So I redid this, and this is what it looked like back in March of 2024. And this is what it looks like today. A lot of really good growth in here. I really enjoy these Pena Blancas. They're not as shy as I've heard a lot of horror stories about. They are pretty sociable. They interact with me quite a bit, actually, so I'm kind of happy about that. We're not like that in the beginning, obviously, as froglets. Frogs do get bolder as they get older, but these guys are pretty special, if you ask me, especially compared to the stories I've heard. As you can see here, this is a thing I like to do with them all the time. I'll point the flies out. They usually follow my finger around, snatch the flies up. Now they have also gotten to the point where they don't even run. A lot of times you'll go up to a frog and they'll kind of crouch down. These guys really don't do that, and as you'll see here in a second, they let me get really close to them. Almost completely interacting with them. Sometimes they do crawl on my hand, which is kind of surprising. As you can tell, this guy's not freaked out one bit. Sometimes it does take a little coercing. Now, I don't like to touch them all the time, but sometimes you just can't help it. So, and here's a perfect example with this female. She's a little jittery, but she gladly just goes on my hand. They really are fun frogs, and really starting to brighten up now that they're getting older. And since these guys are about a year and a half old, I finally do have a pair in here. Unfortunately, this is their first year breeding. I have collected one clutch already, and this is the second one, and just like the first, there were 4 eggs. 2 are just don't look fertile. These actually look like they're almost like snake slug eggs. 2 nice round ones, but we'll see. The other 2 are developing nicely, so more Pena Blancas to add to the collection. Now, sticking with the Auratus theme here, these are my locas. Now, these aren't widely available yet. They are pretty new to the hobby. They were just introduced, I think, maybe 3 years ago, so breeding populations aren't quite there yet. But these guys are in a reptizoo 24 by 18 by 24. This was it in the beginning, and this is what it looks like as of this week, actually. Now, these guys were really shy, and they still kind of are. In the beginning, when I had them in here, as soon as I would approach the glass, they would hide. Now they just seem to freeze and hold in place. But they are really beautiful frogs. And I think this enclosure's grown in pretty nicely. My maidenhair fern up front is not doing so well. I just hit or miss with those things, but boy, the frogs, the blue on these guys is just incredible. And those silvery, bronzy streaks on them are really starting to lighten up. You can see this one here is going to be white pretty soon, I think. Now, luckily, since they do freeze, sometimes I do get really good shots like this one. I mean, that blue is just incredible on these guys. I can't wait for them to start getting to breeding age and hopefully get some nice tadpoles out of them. Now, this is another good example of frogs getting bolder as they get older. So in the past, like I said, these guys are pretty shy. So even when I'd feed them in the beginning, they would not come out. They didn't care how many flies were there, how hungry they were. They'd stay hidden until I left, and it still took them a few minutes to come out. But now I can stand there in front of the glass, watch them, add more fruit flies. They don't hide. Really glad to see these guys staying out now. They're really something to look at. And in case you're wondering where I did get these from, they were from Saurian Enterprises. I think I said that right. But I'll put a link in the description where you can go to find them. Next on the list are my tinctorius Vanessa. I got these at Frog Fest from A to Z Exotics in Michigan. Now the tank they're in is an 18 cube Exoterra. It's small. It was not meant for them. I do have another tank I'm going to start building out, probably my next video, just for these guys. And here you can see the growth that's happened over the last, I think, 3 months. Plants have gone nuts in here. I guess they like the light and the humidity. I do trimmings almost every week and it still looks like this. Now as far as the frogs go, the female's up front. She's still got a little blue on her legs. It's disappearing. The male, he's almost completely white now. So glad to see that. He really looks sharp. Like I said, these guys are bold, and especially when it comes to feeding time, they are completely oblivious to anything that goes on around them once the flies are in here. And of course the male loves to jump into the flies, get covered up, and freak out. These guys are great eaters. I could probably feed them 5 times a day and they would eat every fly they saw. And here you can see just how unafraid of me they are. The male gets a little freaked out sometimes, but the female, she just doesn't even budge. She does not care. Now, fortunately, the only thing these guys like more than eating is breeding. Here I am collecting some more eggs. Yeah, that's typical clutch for them is 3. A couple times they've laid 5. But like I said, these guys love to breed, and the proof is in the pudding. This is what I've collected. I've also got 4 tadpoles that are in their tank right now, so they're growing out. Now, needless to say, I don't have room for 20-some Vanessas, so these will all be for sale as soon as they're old enough. Next up, we have the Phyllobates aurotaenia. I got these as tadpoles from Frog Daddy, I think about 8 months ago. And here's their enclosure I built back in February. This is a ReptiZoo 36 by 18 by 24. Now the tank, as you can see, it's grown in really nice. I mean, a couple things look a little stringy. Could probably use some trimming up, but other than that, just about everything took hold. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 plants that didn't, but you really can't tell. The moss there is a little stringy, but that's easy to take care of with a pair of scissors. But other than that, you can see the Brahms are all starting to get pups shooting off of them. Everything's in really good shape here. Really pleased with how this tank is turning out. If you're new to frogs and you're thinking about getting some, I think these are probably one of your best bets to go with here. Not only are they really beautiful frogs with the green streak and the blue speckled legs, but they're really bold, they're hardy, they're great in groups. Unlike the other Phyllobates, they don't eat as much, especially the Terribilis. Those guys can down some flies. These guys are very manageable when it comes to that aspect. Now, these guys are a bit young, but I have heard, I don't know, I think at least 1 or 2 of them have started trying to call. Every time I go to the tank, they stop. But yeah, I'm hoping pretty soon maybe I'll get some eggs, probably next year. But like I said, the boldness of these guys is just incredible. A lot of these shots, I've got the camera right in there with them, probably about 6 inches from them. They don't care. They don't run. They just go about their business. And it's probably due to the fact that in the wild, nothing's going to eat these guys. If you didn't know, the Phyllobates are the true dart frogs. These are the smallest of the species, I believe, of the Phyllobates, but they are the 3rd most toxic. Now, one thing I just started to notice recently is as these guys get older, they have a nice bright blue patch right behind their front legs, and it's starting to get bigger and brighter, which is just another wow factor on these guys. Now we go from bold and beautiful to scared and beautiful. These are the Ameerega bilinguis I got from Thesaurus of Colombia. These are the Colombian line. These are another beautiful frog. Now here is their enclosure, which is a 24 by 18 by 24 repticue, which I built back in April, and this is what it looks like now. This is another tank that's really grown in well. Really pleased with. Now, unfortunately, like I said, these guys, they're beyond shy. They're getting a little better. Sometimes they'll freeze and sit in place when I approach the glass, but most of the time they bolt, which is really to be expected from a frog this size. These guys are pretty small, not quite thumbnail size, but yeah, they're still relatively small frog. Now, when I bought these, they said there was a possibility that I had 2 pairs, but unfortunately I have 3 males, as you're about to hear. These frogs don't like to be seen, but they love to be heard. Fortunately, I do like the sound of these frogs. It's almost like a bird chirping. They are very loud, not quite Epipedobates loud, but as you'll see here, once one gets going, the other 2 shortly follow in. Third guy's kind of hard to see down there, but I think he is the dominant male because once he gets going, the other 2 stop. Yeah, and this is all day long. So, like I said, I like it. It's not bad. Doesn't bother me. Next up, we have the Pena Blancas. Now, these guys are another shy frog. They're not quite as shy as the Ameeregas were. But here's their enclosure. Probably going to redo this one. Or not redo it, but just move them to a different enclosure. This hex shape is, thought it was cool in the beginning, but it's really kind of a pain in the butt. So, yeah. But anyways, I did change the Brahms out in here. The ones I had before were a little too small for these guys. They are a really beautiful frog. I just unfortunately wish I could see them a little bit more, but what I do see, I really enjoy. So, and these guys have also started breeding. I've gotten a few clutches in the Brahms. They disappear. I don't know if there's enough water in these Brahms for them yet. I did pull one, and it's a tadpole, so yeah, hopefully I'll have some luck with that one. But here's a shot of one of the clutches. I don't know if this is fertile or not. But every now and then I do get some cool shots of these guys like this. They love to hang out up on the sprinkler heads. And for the last frog we have up, this is the Epipedobates tricolor Moraspunga. I got these from Frog Daddy as well as tadpoles. Unfortunately, little mishap with the tadpoles as they were morphing out. I lost 3 of them out of the 5 that I bought, but then I caught up with Alex of Frog Daddy down at Frog Fest and got 3 more from him. So, but here you can see the tank they're in. This is a Zoomed. I picked this one over the Reptizoos because of the vent. I knew I was going to need some extra circulation for the water in there, but yep, these guys are kind of shy, but they're really not when it comes to food, as you can see. When you hit second thoughts, seeing my hand in there. But it doesn't take long for these guys to come out. They really are pretty voracious eaters. Now, the reason I picked the paludarium for them over just a normal tank is that these guys in the wild are found mostly around streams. Their tadpoles are a little different than normal dart frog tadpoles. They seem to be able to cling a lot better, and I think that's due to them being so close to streams and where they get deposited. Now, in case you're interested in getting these frogs or even the others like the Santa Isabels, you should know that these guys are loud. And I mean loud. It's hard to believe that such a small frog can have such a boisterous voice, but yeah, they do. They will wake you up in the morning. And here's a nice shot of the waterfall here. There's a filter behind there. And hopefully soon these guys will start breeding. But in the meantime, I've got some nice ram's horn snails in here that are keeping the water area clean for them. Now, in case you're wondering, I do treat this like an aquarium, and I do water changes, and to keep the algae growth down, I do rinse them down. I have a hose attached to my RO water pressure tank, so that seems to keep things nice and clean. And with that, I'm all done. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video. See ya.